Synergetic Journal Video Episode number 29, March 8th, 2026. What about the complex product? When overwhelmed by the self-defeating complex products in the human condition, we tend to zone out with one diversion or another, most of which is viewing online content in every genre, venue, format. Zoning out deliberately distracts one's own deciphering mind from focusing anew on discovering, developing, disclosing the repressed truths that the world's self-regenerating human populations perpetually deny as morphological aspects of its consciously conceptual identification are rearranged in the zone-out genres tuned in production, adding its degrees of predictability, manifesting boredom in this observed articulation. The momentarily distracted intellect experiences yet another version of the reenacting unresolved interrelated human events. Disclosing the truth to self and others continues to be at the crux of our humanity's worst nightmares, causing human ingenuity to innovate acceptable, albeit subconsciously contrived agreement with the false premised contextual parameters, because it too derives from the PRJWBSHM. Politics, religion, justice, war, belief, system, hierarchical matrix that is best as suitable in theaters of war games. The war games play out on the world stage, as essential populations are its actors in the living, dying human event scenarios. It is where any human specialized training, achieving various levels of education, can become the experts, whose requested opinions provide verified inputs for momentarily satisfying the communication networks tuned in audiences that can increase or decrease in number depending on the competing channels, innovating talent, and technological knowledge that are needed to maintain the system on a 24-hour, 7 days per week, 365 days per year basis. Within spans of time, the individual's experiential psyche's perceptive personalities, philosophical speculation, intuitively evaluates and reassesses discoverable correlations to the suppressed truths hidden in millennia subconscious minds, can consciously attempt to uncover missing elements in the self-other deceptive production by metaysical intellect as a conceptual function of Omnirational Universe. Labeling the millenniums-old missing elements as lies do not consciously reduce the tolerance magnitudes of its residual inaccuracies of the manifest reenacting articulations and observations in the regenerating human event scenarios. Human event scenarios occur throughout the always partially overlapping generations on Earth where and when the actions, reactions, resultant, special case, physical, time, size, interrelated, intertransactions cyclically happen. Informed awareness of the acronym PRJWBSHM occurs to the deciphering observer's synergetically informed mind. The synergetically informed mind brain wrote the acronym as a discovered observation that can serve as a conceptual referential tool for the individual economic initiatives, since the inherited belief system inceptively derives from the cradle of civilization's womb of permitted ignorance. When adapting to its contextual parameters continues to be the rule, not the exception. This historically recorded PRJWBSHM supplies all the newly initiated human event scenarios with food for thought, as grist for the mill, amongst which is the EISEDP, experiences, intuition, speculations, experiments, discoveries, productions, synergetics 502.22. The EISEDP is an irreversible succession of a non-identically repetitive, self-regenerating human events that turn out also to be some conceptual processes. The process of putting human events in irreversible order applies to the importance of clarifying first things first. Yet it does not necessarily apply to the PRJWBSHM, since experience always comes before thinking, whether the experience is of a PRJW belief, for example, and since experience always comes before thinking in every special case, realizability. Be the experience of a PRJW belief, all of which occurs within a hierarchical matrix, where any P, R, J, W factor can be momentarily contrived and positioned to dominate potential interactions, interreactions, interresulting domains. Taken as a contextual parameter, cosmic logically, the obsoletable matrix requires metaysical intellect to discover Omnirational Universe's omnicomprehensive matrix. The omnicomprehensive matrix, in principle, does not derive from the cradle of civilization and has already been discovered in the 20th to 21st century. It is the UIVMOFCH, Universe, Isotropic, Vector Matrix, Operational Field, Cosmic Hierarchy. Consciously informed awareness of this operational field complex provides the essential geometric topological models for our individual imaginations, conceptual formulations referential to its symmetrical forms, tetravolumes, and quantum modules within a matrix of closest packed equiradius spheres, each of which is a conceptual nuclear sphere at the point to be identified as a tetrahedron of negligible altitude and base dimension from a rudimentary level of education. Synergetics 240. It is also important to learn that, in quotes, a point is a tetrahedron of combined zero phase of both altitude and base. Synergetics Dictionary. The primary interfering detriment to popularizing consciously coordinated systemic thought synergetically informed disseminated inputs is an actively inspiring content provider who most likely is logistically situated as a podcaster in TEUCP, the Evolving Universal Communication Process, and is the PRJWBSHM. This is because the variously funded, money-driven media are not ready to obsolete their profit motivations, regardless how their operations facilitate the war games in process. The millions of lost human lives, including children, to every degree that correlates with mild to severe indifference during exploitations in the value of doing harm. In one mind, you've got the PRJWBSHM, which all told does not derive from nature's coordinate system, since from its inceptions the humans who adopted it and adapted to its manifest forms omitted universe and self-educating awareness of universe's minimum structural system, the tetrahedron, as a first subdivision of it. This omission enabled variously contrived agreements with the interrelated factors, thereby sharing no conceptual knowledge of the vector equilibriums, zero phase, and zero pulsations wherewith human mind is closest it will ever know to the eternal, omniscient mind, spelled in lowercase EOM or uppercase UEOM, universe, eternal, omniscient mind, which is the most accurate sound word for God, lowercase, God, uppercase, Allah, and all known names for the deity in every spoken and translated language in the world. In one mind, you've got the UIVMOFCH, which is replete with the equanimity model that in metaysical physical universe shares the same design for clarifications of the eternally self-regenerating generalized principles as our humanity's integral imagination's ability to formulate conceptually its individual economic initiatives, appreciation of a computer complex, and applications of unity, corresponding with awareness of truth being a direction in, out, around, a relationship between events as events are changes between interrelationships, corresponding with cultivated awareness of the product zero. This mind can also be consciously concerned about the continuity of conscious life becoming personality as a product of complex interactions known as cycles or periodic recurrences of a higher frequency order. The very thought of this induces memory-storing brain to recall from its synergetically informed neuronal files what specifically applies to barely cognized generalized conceptioning, which reads that, in quotes, any point can tune into any other point in universe so long as they use the same frequency, end quote. Surely, if ever we intend manifesting a true democracy, referential to UIVMOFCH, we ought to know as much about frequency, since most of us, including me, are baffled by the word frequency, primarily because it is not in our PRJWBSHM cultivated lexicons and nomenclatures, which mostly train our susceptibly redirected focus on biblical examples, omitting in its entirety the essential terminologies. Specifically integrated words of anticipatory design science. You would think manifesting a true democracy naturally relates to a prime state. In Synergetics, we learn that, in quotes, frequency is operationally realized modular subdivision of the system enclosed. This obviously applies to the modular subdivisions of the UIVMOFCH, especially since, in quotes, frequency does not begin until you have modular subdivision, end quote. Citation and context at Quantum Sequence for June 23rd, 1975, Synergetics Dictionary. In Synergetics 445.06, June 22nd, 1972, the quantum propagation of radiant waves identifying with wavelengths and frequencies of embracement, which metaysical intellect conceptually associates with gravity, since it is the embracing circumferential force, and also, hypothetically, is female compared to radiation, which I wonder about, attributively to the PRJ WBSHM as male, or some degree of eventual clarification, albeit in a most superficial fixation. Thus far, we know of the isotopic vector matrix and Synergetics color plate number 9, illustrated therein as a realized succession of concentric 12 around 1 closest packed spheres of the micro-macro cosmic limits, nuclearly unique symmetrical morphological relativity. Obviously, our 21st century generation does not need AI robots to train anyone how to communicate, when each of us is designed in principle by Yom to decipher what turns out to be relatively simple with an inventory of quantum modules, tetravolumes, and symmetrical forms correlating to a rudimentary education that explains the conceptuality of frequency, which is plural unity, a multi-cyclic fractionation of unity. Synergetics 515.30. The importance of the knowledge is to manifest peace on earth, goodwill to mankind, not just on X-mass cards or wishful thinking, but to the evolving awareness of U equal MP, where universe equal metaphysical times physical, a newly informed awareness of scientific omnicomprehensive generalization that can be added to our mathematically statable equations. Synergetics 162. Anticipate advancing as planet Earth consciously evolving humanity, Gratefully, faithfully, eternally. Christina Moriarty Herlufsen, also known as Christina, a Universe Citizen.